this session is all about stage anchoring. And what I'd love to do is, of course, you guys ask questions. Now, if you haven't quite done this session with me live, then just listen, take on board, and then we'll take questions at the end. So why is stage anchoring important? Let's discuss that for a second. If you want to stand out from the crowd, the use of the stage is important. It's important in your storytelling. It's important for visual anchoring and memory. And it's important because it adds dimension to your whole talk. Now, if you've ever seen me speak, you know I don't stand still. But equally, I don't needlessly move. Like you see a lot of people just walk up and down because they've been told to walk. They've been told to move, so move. So they move, but they don't move with purpose, or they clunkily put their hand out because that's what they're trying to do, and it's not part of how they're meant to speak as speakers. So now the power position, that's the place you should always walk into and position yourself to open, to do your disruptor, to do your opening. Yeah, it's basically like a foot away from the front of the stage. You don't want to be at the front of the stage because that's A, it's dangerous because you might fall off, especially if it's a big stage. But B, it's just a bit too much in the audience's face. So you just want to be like a foot away from the front of the stage. You get there, you stand in the power spot, and that's where you would start your talk from. You always go back to that because it represents present. So whenever you're talking about the now, you go to the power spot. Whenever you are selling, you would sell from the power spot. And the reason it's there is because it's central stage. It's the position that visually shows us authority. But also, if you think about when we read, and I'm sorry if my dyslexic brain gets this wrong, we read from, is it right to left? Okay, good. Sorry, Rashma, is that wrong? Let me unmute you because I can see you going there.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's right? Left to right. No,
left
it's
to right. Sorry, my dyslexic brain. But you know my point, what I'm saying. So being in the middle just puts you in that state of power. And again, it's a good anchor for you to know there's a power spot on the stage that you can go and just stand in your power. And that doesn't mean shout or yell, but that's where you sell. That's when you're talking about the now. That's when you're emphasizing a point. You go to the power spot. And that's its use. Now, there's a very funny piss take on, I can't remember the video, but it really takes the piss of stage anchoring. Don't know if you've ever seen it. I'll see if I can track it down. And the guy purposely goes, he walks to the center of the stage, he goes, and now I'm going to make a point. And I look very powerful because I'm in the center of the stage and you are listening. It's very funny. It's like taking the mick of stage anchoring. So it's worth watching because actually, while he's taking the mickey, his points are very valid, right? And so that's the PowerPoint. Now, sorry, the power spot. If you go behind it, that will weaken your stance, that will weaken your positioning, which is why I often hammer you guys for not being too far to the wall. Don't be so far back. You know, I think, Elaine, if I may, when you did your Speaker X, you know, you were stuck to the back, right? And that's because something was going wrong for you in your mind. And that actually weakened it a little bit. And that's why it's important that even when we go wrong, we stand in a power spot, right? And that's a great starting point. Now, we use the past and the future, again, for visual anchoring, for storytelling, because when we read from left to right. Therefore, now I don't know the science. When you go to the past, you would start left stage. Is that right? No, that can't be right. Are you sure? Oh, if you're looking at it, it's left. But it's your right as a speaker. Yeah, so you go to your right. And that represents the past. So when I was a little girl, anything in the past, you want to stick to the right side of the stage. I'm talking about your right as a speaker, okay? But that's also where you would anchor pain, sadness, hurt, because you don't want to anchor pain, sadness in the future, the left side of the stage, as you as a speaker. Okay, emphasizing. So literally, you know, you would kind of have the power position. Sorry, I'm not wearing a belt. Yeah. Let me up my mic so you can hear. So power position. Hi, my name is Elliot K. disruptor, disruptor, disruptor. You know, when I was building Speaker Express, and I would go to the past because it's something that's happened in the past. Now, if I'm talking about a painful something like when I talk about Australia, being on the cliff, I go to the past. And that means every time I go back to that area of the stage, unconsciously your audience is associating that part of the stage to potential pain, struggle, and they know that's in the past, right? Anything to do with success, anything like that, you want to move to the left side, your left side as a speaker, I keep saying that, right? And you want to anchor that on the left side of the stage, right? You know, and I'm going to build seven businesses, or I'm going to walk the trail 3 times over in 2 days, you know, or anything that, and it's really powerful when you go from the past, pain, 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 and today I'm like this, and tomorrow I'm here, right? And that's why you see a lot of speakers use the left side of the stage when it's success, when it's results, right? And the results, I'm going to get you, they go there. But often, equally, they'll go to the PowerPoint and they use the preacher archetype. If you work with me, here's what's going to happen. Yeah. So remember, you've got the power position in the middle, just a foot away from the front of the stage. Whenever you're teaching, you know, this is why the speaker's method's so powerful. There's 6 key areas. It helps you integrate that as your growth strategy, and therefore you gradually accelerate the growth of your business communication, online, offline, through public speaking. Point taken here. You know, when I was coming up as a speaker, I didn't have a structure, la, 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 la. But today I do. Therefore, when I work with each business, here's what they're going to get, and I'm in the future. And let me tell you about a success story. Reshma came along, da, 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 da. So if you want the same power position, let's talk. Can you see? So that's your kind of future, power, present, and past. But equally, what's important is you are consistent with where you stand on the stage, right? Because let's say I'm telling a story and I go back to Australia, and I'm like, hey, so when I did tell the cliff story, for that, I would go to the front of the stage in the past. Yeah. So I go right to the front because I'm looking down on a cliff, da, 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 da. So every time I would tell that story or I'd refer to it, I'd either point to where I was standing because unconsciously people processed it, or I'd go back, stand there. Now imagine you've come to see me, you don't really know me, and I start telling the cliff story. There I was in Australia, la la la, flew out, blah, 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 found myself on the cliff, wondering why me, and then I stood right side of the stage. But the next time I told it, I was in the middle of the stage. The next time I told it, I was in the left side of the stage. In your mind, it will create unconscious distrust because I'm being incongruent with my positioning, and kind of unconsciously go, he's not consistent with where he positions himself. Where else is he inconsistent? Right? So once you anchor something to a certain part of the stage, you always need to go back to that part pretty much exactly. That's why also when storytelling, being consistent with the sizes of things when you're telling stories in those places are really important. If you use the back of the stage, let's say for a fight that you're telling, every time you're going to be talking about the fight, you either want to point to it or go back there to make the point because it's anchored in our mind. So they know that part of the stage. There's a reason why, when Tony Robbins comes on, he's in center stage, and for 4 hours he blasts people and swears at them, and he uses the stage, the different parts of the stage, continuously to anchor certain states. I mean, a lot of speakers do that. It's not just Tony Robbins, obviously. But stage anchoring is one of the greatest tools you could master to get you to stand out, to enroll the audience, and to truly bring them on board with you in the journey. And that's really the power of stage anchoring. Sorry, my wheels weren't quite moving there. Like, move. Yeah. So that's really important. And I'd love to see all the speakers start to use that a lot more, even in 5 minutes, even in 10 minutes. If you can integrate that movement, then A, you're keeping people's eyes going, but B, you're giving your speaking more dimension. And that's what's really important with that. So that's a recap, a bit of a masterclass insight into it. What questions do you have about this? And I'll unmute you. Any questions? Are you still muted? No, you're not.
Can we still do this even when we're recording things?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you've got the space, yeah, absolutely. A good mic, and you can still utilize the space. What I make the effort of now, we're kind of like confined to this, is I'll use my gestures as much as I can to those parts. I hope it doesn't look too ravey when I actually look back on it. But I'm going, when da 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 da, so moving forwards, da 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 da. But you can definitely do it when you're just speaking.
Okay, would you do that after you'd moved there physically the first time, or would you start off with gesturing?
I would move there and then gesture. I always go to that place, then make the point or make the gesture. But what I could do is go from, let's say, the present, the PowerPoint, going, when I was younger, now talking as I'm walking towards it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's really about finding what you're comfortable with and what works for you in that respect. But personally, to keep it connected, because what you can end up with is this, right? What people kind of go, well, I've got to use future, past, present, right? So they go, da, 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 and you see them walk, stop. When I was young, and you see them go, and now, and then they go, in the view, and it can look really clunky.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really about seeing what works for you in a smooth transition when you do it. I think you kind of very natural because you're very animated. So you could kind of walk into it as you're telling or beginning a part of something or ending it as well.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
You're very angelic right now because you have this light from above you.
It's one of the best things about this house is the light in this room. Okay, I guess I just need to practice.
Yeah, test it, record it, look back. What worked? Does it connect? That's why I should record it, watch back, see, does it work? Am I looking clunky? Does it look? Because also I had a terrible habit of looking towards the past. So I'd be walking there, but I'd be looking at the spot I'm heading towards. And then I'd walk up my head. And one of my mates was like, stop doing that. You don't know where the end of you don't know where past is on the stage. Stop looking towards it. But I was so wanting to get it right, like go to the right spot, that I would look, there it is. Okay, I can do this. Yeah? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Julia, Rashma, Joe, any questions?
That reinforces what you said before, so it's more getting anchored in my brain.
Okay, anchoring in your brain. Cool. That's awesome. And then I don't know if Julia's there. Julia, you there? So could you see, if we took some of your current talks, could you see how you could start to use this more?
Yes.
Yeah. And when to use it? Because as a, if it's overused, it just looks forced. So where are you going to use it, Rashma?
I'm just trying to think because, if I think about my avatars, when I'm explaining about the avatars, what I could do is anchor their world in one place, and I can anchor the internal world in a separate place, and then show that most of the time the conflict or the challenge or the problem is in the difference between these two worlds.
Yeah, and how you bridge the gap.
Exactly.
Right. And so then you walking between the two. So you would do something like, again, limited in room here, so bear with me. But you would be like, hi, I'm Rashma. I'm a ninja marketeer. I help self-employed people get to 75K and above. I do that through my unique methodology. A lot of people I work with, before we work together, they're here. They're this, they have a passion, it's become a business, they've lost their time. When I finish working with them, don't have a lot of room in the office, they're here, and here's some results they get. They do this, they do this. How do I get them from here to here? Is my process. And the process bridges people from here to here. Obviously, it works slightly differently. So that's, and then power position. Now that's what I'm going to talk about, my 3 steps to get you from here to here. How many of you here would like that? Great. So
Yeah.
you, okay, get out. No joke. Right? So, you know, that's how you would beautifully bridge the two. And whenever you're referring to it, you've got reference point here to here. So what, and you continuously go back to that. You go, I want to get you from there to there. So who's here? Raise your hand. And who would like to get over there? Cool. And who's not going to put their hand up, whatever I ask? Cool. Right? And that's where all the kind of checking in, the polling questions would come in. Are you with me, people? And you might get someone go, who's here? Great. Well, let me tell you about my other product that gets you to $500,000. I'll talk to you later. You see, stuff like that. So yeah, that's a brilliant way to think about it. The other thing to think about when you're anchoring, especially if, let's say, 3 process, like step 1, step 2, step 3, is you can, again, step 1 is here, step 2 is here, step 3 is here. But what's important is you're always going, when you're talking, that you're consistent to where your steps are. Again, that's stage anchoring. And yes, you would normally go from past to future if you're going 1, 2, 3. Right? It's important. So when I used to sell my program, Power to Succeed, there were 5 key modules. And I'd be like, module 1 is this, module 2 is this, module 3 is here, module 4 is here, module 5 is here. And whenever I talk, okay, let me talk about this module. Instant impact was one of them, right? Right, module 2 is, can't even remember the name of my modules. Whatever. Prepare to launch. 3-day training where we show you how to write a book, prepare a product, and Yeah, and so then whenever I would recap, I would go to the same places again because it's visually anchored in people. Yeah, does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd actually like to see your reworked stuff at some point. Maybe I'll give you that as a challenge in a minute. You guys still have a chance to show me on Friday. I mean, if you're on the call on Monday, don't worry about Elaine. You're not suddenly thrusting for anything.
Oh gosh.
Yes.
So how I would use it, as I get clearer on summarising what it is that I'm saying, I would talk about the old, over here, I would talk about the old human operating system, and that to cope with the uncertainty, we need, I know that was clunky.
That's fine, we're just demonstrating.
The new way of working with instinctual intelligence and listening to our body and our business.
Yeah, and you're that person that helps them get from there to there. And you do that through your
navigating
your training, right? Absolutely. Your books, your tools is what helps people move from here to here. Now, some people move very quickly from here to here, right? They're sprinters. They go boom. But some people take a lot more time to go from here to here, which just shows we're all on a different path, we're on different journeys. My aim is for every single person to end up here. Every person I work with, touch, and get to interact with, I'd love you to be here, right? And we all have different obstacles along the way. So then you could anchor like some big obstacles. You know, one thing I hear always, and then you go to like here, you'd be like, you know, do I have the time? Who here has time for? Right, that's the one obstacle people have. Right, and then you go, bless you. Then you go, money. That's something that we come across. Who here feels that money, bless you, money is an obstacle? Great. And who here is not sure if it'll work for them? So then, and you go, okay, well, as I talk, I'm going to address these issues and I'm going to show you how we can overcome these obstacles and we can all end up there. But whenever you're talking, even if you're not saying, let me talk about money, you'd always go back to that money spot when you're addressing. So if you're telling a success story, Elaine came to me and she was frustrated and and she was stuck in the old way of doing things. And when we sat down and talked, she's like, look, I'm busy. I'm an author. I go exploring 3 times a year. I've got 12 speaking gigs in the US. I just don't have time for this. So actually, once we sat down, there's a couple of things I did with Elaine. I said, intuitively, do you want to do it? Is your intuition telling you this is the right thing? And you know, well, normally that's, well, yeah. So it's your head telling you it's not. Can you see how you are currently in exactly the paradigm I'm talking about, which is your intuition that knows what's good for you saying, do it. but your head, which is protecting you, is saying don't. So if time wasn't an issue, I said to Elaine, would you do it? She said yes. I said good. So if we broke down how to work together in small incremental chunks, would you be able to do it? Yes. And I worked with Elaine for da-da-da-da-da, and now she's on this side, and here's what she's doing. And so you'd go back to that money spot. And then next time in the talk, when you're addressing someone, oh, sorry, time. Was that time? That was time, right? And then you go to the middle again, where you talked about money, and you'd talk about something to do with money, and you'd go to that. Do you see? So you're always consistent with where you've anchored things. Even if you think that it's not quite anchored, unconsciously it will be. And it just makes you'll stand out from all the speakers that don't use this. If nothing, if you go, wow, she uses the stage really well. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? So that's how you could use this anchoring as well. And I know it's a lot to take in, but that's why the practice element of you getting up, practicing in your living room, moving around, knowing those spots, recording yourself, watching back, that is going to massively accelerate you as a speaker and get you to stand out. If you think right now of the 5 last speakers you saw, how many of them use this really well? I don't need to know their names, but just think about that. And actually look at the speakers you've related to, look at the speakers that have an impact on you. The chances are you've seen them do this. They use it. They use it very well. John DiMartini doesn't use it very well, but he talks a lot. He's a great speaker, but he's not emotive. He's very heady, but he's great. So it all depends again who resonates with you. But you want to stand out, this is the space you use. Does that help, Julia?
As always, Elliot, that was a great little spiel. I made notes.
Good. There is some wisdom that comes out of my mouth every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, all these things are simple, and but going through it even now, it's basically just why it's difficult is because it's counterintuitive, and one has to go. We're all dyslexic in that sense because it's so strong for us that the future is on that side in our own bodies. That as speakers, we have to really rewire that.
Rewind. And of course, anyone that does like NLP or timeline therapy, then this baffles them because future's in so many different people, from different people, right? It could be in front of them, behind them.
I know other systems.
Right. But this isn't a therapy setting. This is just, and again, if you went to the Middle East and you went to Dubai, would you have to flip them? Probably. Yeah. You'd have to flip it. So that's something completely different. You'd have to go to past and future because obviously they read the other way. So this is, as a speaker, to be world class, to stand out. These are all the little details that matter. Yeah. Of course, we can stand there and deliver a great talk and not move, but it all depends on the impact and the memory. You know, for me, what's really shifted, when I did Power to Succeed, I used to get, look, great storyteller. And that was the strength of Power. Obviously, the content I liked to think was great. But what people really loved is my storytelling because of how I use the stage and the emotive side of it. Because that was very emotive stuff, Power to Succeed, right? It was all about your internal battle. Now, when I tell a story, I'm much more in that. I use the stage differently. Obviously, I use it in the same manner, but I'm not as emotive when I'm storytelling. I'm empathetic. I'm caregiver, light-hearted, gestury a lot with but not when I'm selling, obviously. Then I'm executive, archetype. So it's having those different layers and dimension and being able to switch that, but still use that framework. You'll stand out, you know. You just will when it's done properly, and that takes time. You've got to remember, I did 5 years of this with another training company, and I was one of their assessors for 5 years. So I was lucky because I was demonstrating it half the time, but also I was watching people doing it half the time. And giving people marks. So I wasn't very popular a lot of the time, to be honest. But, you know, that's okay because if people need to learn, they need to hear the harsh truth sometimes. Now, delivered with empathy and love, of course. And plus, I had a mentor that kept pulling me up on stuff. But honestly, and I think what you'll find now is you'll watch speakers very differently once this is really embedded in you. Because I see, oh yeah, he's going to the past now. Here comes the story. He's going to make a point. Oh, he's going to the future. He's going to talk about success. And I just can't help it. I'm not being a mismatch. I just can't help. Oh, yeah. Like when I watch dance, I'm looking at the lights, I'm watching the choreography, the lines, the detail. I just can't help it. I do enjoy it. I'm not that bad. I've always wondered if chefs can enjoy a meal when they go out to a restaurant or they sit there picking it apart and analyzing it. That's a different matter. Is this helping, peeps?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you see how it will give you another dimension? Completely different layers to your talks. Yeah?
Okay, so within the same talk, could you use the right, left and centre for something as well as past, present, future?
Yeah, you could use that to anchor elements of a story, to anchor different points in the story, to excuse me, to anchor key principles. So yeah, absolutely. As long as you're consistent and you're always going back to them, then that works. Hi, Jamie, Sarah.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you all?
Yeah,
Joshua
we're good.
and I are just out for a little walk.
Oh, hi, Joshua.
Hi. Hello.
He's such a beautiful little boy.
Yeah.
So hey,
Such a
Yeah.
smiley bunny.
So we're just talking about stage anchoring, things like that, just to bring you in the loop and how to use it. Obviously, it's being recorded, so I'll post it in the group a bit later if you didn't see it. Oh, but you didn't. Oh, yes. I'm just gonna mute you, James.
Elliot, when you have a second, can I ask you a question about something?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Thank you. Just let me know when you're ready.
Cool, I will do. Oh, not you. Yeah, cool. Yeah, does that make sense, Elaine? So you could like say your 3 principles are these, or 10. I mean, as long as you're consistent with it, yes,
Right.
is the answer.
So the audience won't get confused that you've...
No, because when you're telling a story, I mean, this isn't something people really consciously go, oh, she's in the past. It's another thing.
Okay.
But they won't get confused with the fact that, let's say you've got 3 principles in the past, 3 in the now, and 3 in the future. They won't go, oh, no, as long as when you're talking about the past, you're using that part. And when you're talking about the principles, you're going to the same point. It won't confuse them. Unless they're so highly critical, they're so aware of this stuff, then they might get a bit confused. Like, what she did. But someone who's that aware will know what you're doing. Oh, she's using stage anchoring. Oh, she's using past, future, present.
Oh, right. Okay.
But no, I'd be amazed if someone gets confused.
Right.
Like,
And do you need to make distinctions between where in the past you are? So if I'm telling a story, do I need to move further if I'm telling a story that happened when I was 4, if I'm telling a story that happened when I was 30? No, that's just all big the past.
Still all in that part. What you can do for that is use something called multiple perceptual representation, and that's where you look down when you're talking to the girl, and then the girl looks up at you when you're, and that's when you almost use different, not characters. And that's something we could cover at one of the trainings, which we don't go in great depth. But you would do something like...
Yes, let's do that.
Have to find days in the year for all these. Have to extend the training.
What's it called again? Multiple
positional representation. So you would go MPR. You'd go. If I could take your, your stupid kind of thing. If I may. Again, so I'm just ad-libbing. This isn't. I know it's not. So it'd be like something like.
Fine.
And then the teacher looked at me and went, "Why are you so stupid?" And then you do something like you just bend your knees slightly and you would look up. So you're not on your knees, but you just bend them and then look up, right? So you're still standing straight, but you've anchored, you've put the teacher here, and then you've shown the height difference. And then you go, I didn't know how to answer that. I'm only 4. Right? What a question to ask a 4. So I'm looking at this teacher going, I don't know. And inside I'm crumbling and I'm teary. I'm only 4 years old, and the person that's supposed to teach me is calling me stupid. You don't have an answer. Then you don't need to do that. You don't have an answer, Elaine. You see, and that's when you start to, you can
Okay.
use different parts of that. Siri just woke up for some reason. And that's how you can add the different elements to the past by using NPR. Now that's a whole different topic and masterclass. I can discuss it if you want. We can do a masterclass on that.
Yeah, that'd be
During
great.
this period. Even though we haven't covered it in the training room, I'm happy to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But that's how you would layer the past, if you know what I mean, is what you ask.
Yeah, okay.
Because otherwise, you know, you'd end up like off stage. It's like, oh, when I was like,
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking.
yeah, no, you don't want that. Just as long as in that space.
My spatial awareness isn't good at the best of times.
Yeah, I don't want you to be like, well, I'm now 4 and I'm like right by the wing and no one can see me.
Yeah, I disappeared behind the curtain at that point.
Yeah, so in that respect, no, you don't. As long you can go back as a 4-year-old, you can go back as a 10-year-old, as an 18, as long as it's past.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Has anybody ever seen Dave Allen when he was doing an adult trying to teach a child to tell the time? He was sort of doing the going down and then looking down onto the child, and that was very clever.
Dave Allen? No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, when
is there a video of it?
It'll be on the best of. I don't actually have a video of it.
No, like if there's a clip of it online, can you post it in the group?
I'll see where I can find it online.
If it is there. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So, Rashma, any questions? Julia, any insights? Any questions?
I have one, but not related.
Okay. Well, Elaine, has that helped you?
Yes, it has massively. Thank you very much.
Cool. By the way, cool. So should we wrap up the masterclass?
Yeah.
Yes.
You happy with that? Cool. Let me stop that then.